Hello, you beautiful divine soul. Welcome to this abundantly rooted interview series. Today, we are going to talk about the difference between ease versus easy with our guest, Maki Moussavi. Maki is a transformational coach, speaker, and author. She is the author of the High Achievers Guide. Transform your success mindset and begin the quest to fulfillment. Maki helps high achievers, people who are overwhelmed and stuck, and people who have success on the outside but are feeling like they are unfulfilled and that there is more to life. And she helps people find something that is satisfying by working through that outside validation that we may be searching for. She helps people who are doers and constantly in motion find the peace in their life and the value of actually sitting down and doing that deep inner work so that they can find what looks good and feels good in the outside of their life and create that on the inside. She is also the creator of the Anti-Hustle Success Blueprint and takes people through this process in order to find that fulfillment and connect that in their day-to-day life and with their families and their career so that they can finally have the fulfillment that they desire. So welcome, Maki. Thank you for joining me here today.
Hey, Sarah. Excited to be here.
Yeah, so I'm really excited to dive into this topic of ease versus easy. We've talked about this a lot, you and I, and how a lot of times when people are on this personal development journey, we are searching for something that makes life feel like it's not a struggle and that we're not stuck. And so we're looking for something that is easy. But really what we're looking for is ease in our lives. And sometimes that's not as easy as one might think. So I would love to hear some of your thoughts on how you conceptualize this.
Yeah, we talk about this a lot, don't we? Yeah, I mean, when you're in a really bad spot and things feel like a lot, it's very tempting to go to the thing that just feels easier because that's what we're all searching for. We just want it to feel easier than where we've been. But, the reality is that I don't think that most of us get a lot of fulfillment from doing things that are easy. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, if you just do, and for some of us, there's things that come very easily that other people are like, oh my God, I can't believe you can do that. It's so easy for you. And you're like, yeah, but you don't even really think of it in that way because it's just like an innate ability, perhaps. So the danger with wanting things to be easy is that it's just like this very temporary fix that I think you would become pretty bored with pretty quickly because things that are easy are not stimulating by their very definition, right?
Right.
Whereas ease is like being in something that feels challenging but feeling like a level of confidence that you know how to navigate it and get through it. Even if it's not necessarily going to be easy in the process, it doesn't feel overwhelming. You're like, okay, here I am. I don't need to fast forward to the very end of how I think I'm going to get from this point to this like very highly desirable super end point. All I need to do is figure out how to get from here to here and then from here to here. And to let the ease come in, kind of the answers coming to you as you go, instead of like trying to control outcomes and map every little detail out. That's one of the ways that I think about it.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think you're so right about how our minds always want to go to like the big outcome and what we want, which is a great space to be in, right? To visualize what we're headed towards and what we're working towards, and having to break it down, because to me finding ease is also about surrender to what's difficult. And I know in your work you're constantly working with people to look at things that are really uncomfortable. And it's like allowing yourself to go into that pressure and that uncomfortability is what helps people break through to the other side, that then brings more of that alignment and that flow in order to be able to go to the next step and the next step and the next big vision and the next big vision of you know, that we're working for
Yeah.
our path.
Yeah. I mean, what you said about surrender, I love, because surrender is just not something we're taught to do. You know, we're taught the opposite. We're taught to like make a plan and follow it down to the details, and to make sure that we are thinking about like potential pivot points and having backup plans. And it's a lot of pressure, and surrender can feel very scary because we are so conditioned to think that we are supposed to be operating in that way, that surrender feels a little bit like letting go of the reins and kind of seeing what happens, which most of us have not been taught to want. And we're not taught that that can actually lead us to a better place maybe than the one we even had in mind. So yeah, I think the surrender piece is really, really huge. And absolutely, I think even just that surrendering to the fact that this feels like shit right now, you know, but there's a purpose to that, because unless you feel like something sucks, you're not going to change it. And that's just the reality of being a human. Like sometimes you have to be in the place where, yep, this feels terrible, I hate it. And that is a catalyst for you, you know, if you take advantage of it to say, okay, we're done here. Like, how do I get out of this? And how do I not over orchestrate what that looks like, and allow some external feedback to come in as I'm trying to make this change? Definitely.
Yeah. A couple of things about what you said there. You know, that control piece, how we're so conditioned to try to control everything because we're kind of taught that, like, oh, that's how happiness is created. If you can control how you're feeling, versus like just letting ourselves feel shitty for a little bit in order to like go through the process. And I think, you know, that's why so many people are drawn to finding what's easy because of that conditioning. And we have this like magical fairy tale in our head that, you know, the easy way and not feeling uncomfortable is what's going to create that better outcome, right? Instead of letting ourselves like just really get into the mock and going
Yeah.
at.
Oh, so much. I love what you said about the like not wanting to be uncomfortable, because sometimes the path of ease does actually have quite a bit of discomfort that comes with it, right? Because you're sort of surrendering maybe to a higher vision or version of yourself that has to take some risks and maybe do some things that feel a little bit scary. But you can still do that without feeling, you know, like you want to go jump off a cliff because it's too scary. And then there was something else that was triggered when you were talking about this control piece. And you and I have talked about this a lot too. You know, we're kind of living in this era where there's so much emphasis on manifestation. And a lot of the ways that manifestation is taught is to be very specific, to like have the vision board and write the thing down and say it 25 times and be obsessed with it, which, okay, it might work, you know, technically speaking. But it still really shuts down these avenues of surrender and maybe getting clear in your mind about what you envision or how you want to feel, and then surrendering to that process to some extent, and waiting to see what the next steps are, instead of like basically ramming your the thing that you want to manifest into existence. Because I think that's where a lot of people get frustrated. You know, they're like, well, how come it works for some people to like be on this path of manifestation where things just come to them, and I'm really trying? And it's like, well, listen, the thing that you're trying to do is what you have conceptualized in your limited view of what's possible for you, because we all have a limited view of what's possible for us, and it might just be too damn small, and it may just be on the wrong path. But you aren't allowing the information to come in that could expand your perspective by being tunnel vision focused on something.
Oh yeah, so well said. Because you know, I love Abraham Hicks, and I know you listen to Abraham Hicks, and I think there is this misconception in the manifestation world of like, don't ever feel bad, or else you're putting that out into the world. When the reality is like that's not really what is being shared in that messaging around Abraham Hicks, and that there is some misconception in that manifestation world around, like, it's almost like sticking your head in the sand, right? And trying to only ever feel good, when really that is building up a lot of resistance, because you're not willing to like fully embrace the human experience that we got into these bodies for, and to go through those pieces in order to, I love what you said about opening up, because you're either on the wrong path or you're thinking too small. And it's when we can come to meet those challenges with a different mindset. It's okay. However you're feeling is okay. And also don't let yourself get stuck, right?
Right.
In the wallow. But meeting it with a mindset of welcoming the challenge and welcoming those feelings in order to work through it and do the deep inner work, in order to like really open up to that divinely inspired path, or that more aligned path that we never would see with our blinders on, of like, okay, I'm going to control this and I'm going to make this happen.
Yeah,
Yeah.
totally. Like being willing, we've talked about it before, like, marinate a little bit in what sucks so that you know why it's not what you want, and what you would rather have instead can really begin to form more powerfully. And it's almost like, I love what you said about the positive thinking piece, because it's like you can get into this toxic positivity place where you're actually more in denial about what's really happening than you are positive, right? It's like slapping a pretty label on something that you're really feeling, instead of processing the thing you're really feeling so that you can come out of it. Because like you said, like, you don't want to spend all your time in that negative space, but that space has a purpose in helping you do something about it, right? So if all you do is go, well, I'm just supposed to be happy about this and I'm just going to act like I'm okay and everything's all right, it's not really the point. And I think we are just in this unfortunate place where there's too many quick fixes promised, there's too many formulas promised, there's too much emphasis on like being the force that makes things happen. Because even in those, conversations, or those people, there's a lot of lip service that's paid to like being in this dance with the universe and like energetics, but it's like, but you're not actually doing that if you're just focused on, I got to make this thing happen, versus I kind of want to see like what we can orchestrate together. Like, let me see what I might want to put out there that I'll get some feedback on in whatever way that will show me like yes or no. And then you can just keep, doing your little thing. And it might take a longer than you thought, but sometimes you're on a need to know basis about divine timing and things like that. And eventually you will know when you look back on it in hindsight, but right now you just kind of have to trust.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the trust is so huge. And like you said, orchestrating this dance with the universe instead of ramrodding, but allowing that feedback.
Mm-hmm.
And and so one of the things I love is that I get to know you at soul level. So I know that your main soul gift is divine truth. And you are someone who is here to shine a light and to bring a lot of truth, but the way you specifically are created to do that does bring in a lot of contrast, for yourself individually and as you work with your clients a lot of
Yeah.
times, because of the way that that contrast works, because you are open to feedback from the universe and you are open to seeing what doesn't work in order to hone and make space and call in what really works. So do you want to talk a little bit about contrast and how that can inspire us to find our ease and alignment and flow?
Yeah, for sure. Yes. So that was nicely said. Yeah, the way that I am built does definitely create some, prickly feelings, I think, but mostly with people who, as Sarah has pointed out to me rightly many times, who aren't ready to look at the thing that is being pointed out, right? So I think for me, I am definitely built to kind of process my experience through contrast, and it can be exhausting sometimes. So if you're anything like me, that might mean, a series of interactions, events, circumstances where you're like, this is not what I want. I do not enjoy this. I do not want to be in interaction in this way, whatever it is. But that is such a rich source of information, I believe, that is refining, because sometimes when we think about what we want, and this can be the other trap of manifestation, is we may be very vague about what that means, right? So like, let's say you're somebody who's like, oh, I'm just so dissatisfied with my work and I want this great paying job. And if I just made more money, like everything would be cool. And then a job opportunity comes in, but you don't really like the person that you're talking to, or you don't necessarily agree with like the mission of the company or whatever. So it creates this opportunity to look at that and see the contrast. Like, okay, well, I said this was what I wanted, but here's what I don't want, right? So I need the opportunity that I get to feel like this. I want the mission or the values of the company to be like this. Or if I'm working with a consultant or I am in business for myself, you know, this is this is the vibe that I want to have. These are the people that I want to come to me. And so it's through those little like annoying kind of interactions that happen in those points, it's like it is actually like you are getting that opportunity to do the dance with the universe, because it's like it sends you something and you're like, that's not it, so let me be more specific, right? And then you just keep doing that until the thing that feels like the right thing kind of pops up and you go, oh yeah, that's more like it. So yeah, it's iterative sometimes, right? It's not like the magic wand. And so the magical thinking BS that a lot of people engage in is, it's like, yeah, you can put your vision board together and that's great, but there's going to be some stuff that's going to come in between like where you are now and that coming into actualization that requires you to take a look at it and keep deciding, you know, no, a little more like this, little tweak here, a little tweak there, until you get to where you want to be. So I still give myself permission to be like, ugh, this effing sucks. And then be in that space for just a little bit and then be like, okay, thank you for that. Now I'm going to take that information and do whatever with it.
Absolutely. Yeah, I do too. I mean, I feel like that is how we orchestrate, those messages from the universe, and by like allowing those feelings to be seen and felt and heard and let them move through our experience instead of wishing them away, too quickly,
Right.
instead of getting the gift from that. And, something we've talked about a lot is kind of like, and first of all, just to say, you and I both do vision boards. We both
Mm-hmm.
use a lot of these spiritual tools and they're wonderful. And it's about then taking that representation and that work and letting it go a little bit deeper,
Mm-hmm.
doing the shadow work, doing that deep inner work. And we talk about it a lot as like flexing a muscle. And
Mm-hmm.
just like a workout, just like a strength training, that you're building those muscles over time. And something else, that you talk a lot about is being grateful and also wanting more. And so to me, I feel like, by doing this work, it's like flexing those muscles of seeing the gratitude in whatever experience you're in, and also recognizing the message that it's bringing you when it doesn't
Mm-hmm.
feel good, and desiring something more and being really okay with that whole process.
Yeah, I think all too often gratitude is used as a tool to like shame people. So if you're in a place where you have it good on a lot of levels, like maybe you have a great business, or, wherever you're at looking good, but you're having some personal struggles with feeling fulfilled, or maybe there's elements of your life that you aren't 100% happy with. Sometimes if you tell the wrong person, and this can be a person who loves you very much, they can be like, well, you've got everything, like you should just be grateful for what you have. And that implies that you're not, which I think most of the time is not the case. And it can shut you down to accepting and having, just staying in a place of lower expectations, because it's not right to want more. So I think that is, what we have to remember is it is our purpose on this earth to grow and expand. And it's through that, wanting more and transcending our expectations to another level, that we have that experience.
Yeah, yeah. I love how you just said that. Like, that is our purpose, is to expand and grow. And it
Yeah.
always makes me think of like contraction and expansion, right? That those
Mhm.
pieces of, going through the muck is the contraction in order for us to expand and
Yeah.
find the ease and flow and all the things that we want.
Yeah. It's like putting down
Yeah.
the big heavy weight, so that you can have like a little bit, okay, I feel much better now that I've
Yeah.
been able to put that down.
Yeah. So you stretch and inhale.
Yeah, exactly.
So before we wrap up here, I want to ask you what makes you personally, or, the work that you do with your clients. And, you're also a speaker and an author. So when you think about being rooted,
Mhm.
or abundantly rooted and going through this process, what is that like for you or in the work that you do?
I've thought about this question because it's a good one. I think for me, what I have to continually come back to, and I'm always so grateful to you for sharing with me, my soul gifts and being able to see them in a different perspective than I've experienced them, historically, is I have really had to embrace that um, my purpose is to tell a truth in a way that sparks people when they're ready to hear it, but that other people won't necessarily resonate with. And so I root myself in um, doing what I'm here to do and being in my purpose and not being as concerned with the response that I will get from like maybe the general audience or whoever I'm working with. I know that it serves the people that I work with one-on-one because they have to be ready for that to even step forward into that, into that relationship. When speaking, it's a little different because definitely the majority of the people in the audience aren't necessarily ready for whatever we're going to talk about. But I will say that what I appreciate is that most people will sit with the information and take it in a way that it takes root. I mean, honestly, it takes some kind of root. So even if it's not for now, it's a seed that's planted for the future. And I've had to surrender the idea that like I'm here to be liked or that I'm here to um, create some kind of following of people who are just all about me because that's actually not what I'm here to do, unfortunately. I mean, I have those people. When I work with people, we form this really sacred bond of like doing that work together, and it's super fulfilling on both sides. But I think, the general messaging, like I've just had to surrender into who I'm here to be, and I remind myself of that. And I ask for help with that from a spiritual perspective because it isn't always easy to be that person. It's not always fun to be that person, um, but I do feel positive about surrendering to that and being like, okay, well, that's what I'm here to do. So let's do it.
Yeah, beautifully said. Thank you for that. And if you want to be rooted in your own personal truth and your own fulfillment and working through what's uncomfortable to find your own ease, then you can check out Maki's book, The High Achievers Guide, in the links below, and her YouTube channel as well. Thank you so much for joining me, Maki. Thank you to you for being here. All the best.